Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to go over the NFL preseason week 2, and as you can see the odds are on the screen. And we're going to start with the Miami Dolphins versus the Detroit Lions. Miami opens on the money line is on the money line at minus 116, minus 102 for the Detroit Lions. I keep saying opening because I was doing stock research earlier, but anyway. The spread is at 1.5 points, so it's basically somewhat of a pick'em game. 51% win percentage for Miami, 49% win percentage for Detroit. But the spread is at minus 1.5 point favorites are the Dolphins on the road at minus 104 cost. 1.5 point favorites are the Lions at minus 118. They're an underdog on the spread, underdog in the game currently, only because they're lesser on the money line, but over under is at 37.5 minus 105. That is a sweet spot. Over 37.5 points is at minus 105 cost, minus 115 going under. Let's see where the money is going. Let me scroll down. All right, as you can see right here, 46% in favor of the Dolphins, 21% of the money in favor of the Dolphins, 54% of the betting in favor of Detroit on the money line, 79% of the money in favor of the Lions on the money line. Spread looks like this. Miami's 1.5 point favorite spread is at 23% betting, 27% money. Detroit spread is at 77% betting, and 73% of the money going in their direction. Over under, the over is dominating. 88% of the betting and 86% of the money going over. And that over is at that minus 105 sweet spot. Look to join the public in that one. This one right here, minus 116. When you see these pick'em games, obviously you're going to see a lot of this minus 104, minus 118, or you're going to see minus 102 to minus 120. You'll see those numbers a lot. Sometimes you'll go to plus 100, minus 122, but just keep that in mind. There's for a reason. And when you see these 1.5 point spreads, you always have to be aware of the 1 point victories. But you also have to be aware of the field goal victories, the 3 point victories in football. So keep that in mind. It's minus 116. We're going to focus on the higher negative. So the minus 118 spread for Detroit and the minus 116 for the Dolphins. All right, that gives Detroit 73% of the money going in their direction on the minus 118. But these odds have changed as of the splits. The percentages of the splits have changed so far this morning. Not significantly for this game, but slightly. This 79% was not this high as of late yesterday. It was at 81% this morning, then it went to 79. But late yesterday evening, it was around low 70s, high 60s, around 60, 68, 69 to 71, 72. And it was hovering around that. Now it was at 81. Now it's at 79. And since then, Detroit's odds have been plus 102 and have gone to minus 104. Now they're at minus 102. They're teetering with this line, which makes me think Detroit should be a safe pick across the board. Look out. Don't be surprised if Detroit ends up becoming more of a favorite and they have a higher win percentage by the game time. Do not be surprised if that's the case. Go with Detroit across the board. If not, go with Miami on the money line and the Detroit on the spread. But look out for Detroit on the money line, though. All right, let me scroll back up. That was ridiculous. Went too far. All right, Carolina versus Houston. Plus 100 for Carolina on the money line, minus 130 for Houston. 2.5 point underdogs at minus 112 cost are the Panthers. 2.5 point favorites are the Texans at minus 108 cost. Over under is at 39.5 points. Minus 108 going over. Minus 112 going under. And let's see where the money is going in this one. All right, we're going to focus on the higher negative. That is Houston at home and Carolina on the spread. Houston at home on the money line. Carolina on the road on the spread. and the unders at minus 112. That is those hit more than the minus 108s. And let me find here we go, the splits. 29% betting going in Carolina's favor, 43% of the money going in their favor on the money line, 71% for Houston, 57% of the money for the Texans. 44% betting on the spread for the Panthers, 43% of the money on the spread for the Panthers, 56% of the betting on the spread going with the Texans, 57% of the money they are getting over under. Over, it is now 39.5, was 38.5, 83% going over on the betting, 75% of the money going over on the betting, and that is getting the minus 108 cost. The under is getting minus 112, but look out for that. Whichever one has a higher negative, go with that value. So currently I would fade the public, but that could change come game time. Whichever one you see approach that higher negative, go with that one. FanDuel and DraftKings are the most accurate on this, and so is 365, Bet365. So, and Bet Now as well. They're very consistent when they get when they flip late. The higher negative late usually gets that number, especially on the totals. But the minus 130 is getting 57% of the money. Texans look good across the board here. And it's a 3-point game. It's hard to go against a team you pick, especially in football, with 2.5 or less spread if you pick them on the money line, especially when they're a favorite. So Texans look like they're good across the board. Let's go to the next one. All right, Green Bay versus the Colts. Let me scroll down and put them at the top. All right. Green Bay versus Indianapolis, plus 198 for the Packers, minus 240 on the money line for the Colts. This is a 5.5-point spread favoring the Colts at home. The underdog Packers is getting minus 108 cost, minus 112 cost going with the Colts at home. Over unders at 40.5, minus 105 cost going over, minus 115 going under. And here are the splits. 34%, right at the top of your screen. Money line, 34% of the betting. This is all based off global sportsbook averages. Multiple sportsbooks averages the betting percentages out, averages the money out. This is how we get this data. 34% going with the betting on the Green Bay on the money line, 60% of the money. They are getting 60% of the money, significant amount of money. Now the sharps bet late, so a lot of these percentages are going to change, but I'm teaching you how to read the odds versus the splits. All right, 73% of the betting in favor of the Packers on the spread, 77% of the money they are getting. Indianapolis is only getting 27 and 23% respectively betting and money percentages. Over under 40.5. Over is getting 81% of the betting and 80% of the money. All right, let's see where things land here. Minus 240, minus 112. Minus 240 is getting only 40% of the money, but that is still a significant amount of money. Now, when the sharps go in, I don't think these percentages are going to change much, because I think it's going to be more than likely splits between the Packers and the Colts. So it may end up around 58 Green Bay, 42 Indianapolis, maybe even 60-40 like it is now. The money percentages, that is. So Green Bay, they are 5.5-point underdogs, and they're getting 77% of the money. That could happen, but dare I say, I would challenge these odds, though. But with Indianapolis having something to prove, the underdog players, once again, this is preseason, so you don't have to worry about the rigging as much. But, because obviously the game is rigged, but you don't have to worry about that as much in the preseason. Guys are trying to make the team. And the Colts have more, especially at quarterback, they have more to prove, which makes me think they're going to win this game, although I think they're going to struggle to win this game. So Green Bay looks good on the spread. Colts look good on the ML. currently. That is only currently based off these percentages. Obviously, this can change. Over, under. Minus 105 going over. And I would join the public and go with that over. Let's go to the next one. New England versus Minnesota. Plus 100 even for the Patriots on the road. Minus 118 for the Vikings at home. 1.5 point underdog are the Patriots on the spread at minus 115 cost. 1.5 point favorites are the Vikings at home at minus 105 cost. Over under 38.5. Minus 108 going over. Minus 112 going under. And let's see where the percentages are. Things up here. All right, 52% of the betting on the money line going with New England. 68% of the money going with New England. Spread looks like this. 55% betting going with the Patriots. Only 20% of the money going with the Patriots on the spread. 1.5 points currently. And they are getting that minus 115, which doesn't win as often as the minus 105. Just keep that in mind. But this is a pick'em game somewhat. About a 52% win percentage for Minnesota, 48% win percentage for New England. That's basically essentially a pick'em game. Even though it's not 50-50, it's close enough. 88% of the betting going over, 84% of the money going over on the total. So 38.5 minus 108 going over, minus 112 going under. Let's see 88% of the betting going over, 84% of the money going over. Let's see. Okay, minus 112 is getting that under. The under is getting the minus 112. Under 38.5 is only getting 16%. However, with this being said, this could flip, especially when the sharps go in. It's not going to change these percentages much. I'm going to tell you that now. It will not change these percentages much, although they could go down, and that they will go down to about 70th percentile, still with the over dominating. But that 112 could easily become the over, and minus 108 could easily become the over, or it could go even minus 110. But I would join the public and go with that over. And let's see. 32% Minnesota, 80% going with them on the spread here. I would go with Minnesota. See, there's a pick'em game, so you can't. Plus 100 even for New England. They were at plus 110, 68% of the money going with them. Let's see. Because they're going to get, regardless of who wins here, they're going to get the money off the Minnesota Vikings and the Patriots. So I would, as this currently stands, this plus 100 even is enticing. But only as it currently stands, I would go with Minnesota across the board, only as it currently stands. But I'm leaning toward the Patriots. Monitor what happens with the spread cost as game time approaches. That minus 105 cost is critical. Just keep that in mind. All right, Cleveland versus Philadelphia. Plus 184 for the Browns, minus 220 for the Eagles on the money line. 4.5 point spread and minus 112 cost going with the Browns, minus 108 going with the Eagles. Over unders at 37.5, minus 110 going over, minus 110 going under. Let's see where these values are. Minus 220 going with the, let's see, Eagles. Let me scroll back up. All right. 81% going with the Eagles on the betting. 78% of the money going with the Eagles. Eagles on the money. Spread percentages, betting percentages, 60%. Money percentages, 84%. So people betting heavily on the Eagles in this game. Over under. This is a game they could dupe fans with, especially with these high percentages. And I'm only going to entice you to go with Cleveland. Once again, Cleveland looks like money this week, especially if too many people, and they are, 78% of the money and 84% of the money going with them on the spread. Minus 112 is what Cleveland is getting with the sweet spot. I would go with them on the spread. Money line is enticing to go with the Eagles, and the Eagles just might win this game, but this is preseason. And let's see, this over under 37.5 at minus 110 cost. 90% and 90% going with 90 betting and 90% of the money going with the Eagles. Going with the over, excuse me, going with the over. So I would join the public and go with the over in this one. Though that 90 percentile is not going to hold up. If it does, go with the under. If the 90th percentile holds up, go with the under. It more than likely will not. The sharps come in, they will go under. And watch how those percentages, if the under becomes 36.5, then you have something to look forward to. If not, then go with the Cleveland Browns plus 184. Yes, go with the Cleveland Browns plus 184 on the road as it currently stands. Challenge, fade the public in this game. Obviously, this is going to be the Browns are the center of attention this preseason. Fade the public in that one. See what happens. Win you some money. Take the risk. 49ers, Raiders. Plus 172 money line for the 49ers on the road. Minus 205 for the Raiders. Plus 4.5 at minus 115 costs going with the 49ers. Minus 4.5 going with the Raiders at minus 105 cost on the spread. Over under 40.5. Minus 115 going over. Under is getting minus 105 costs. Now we're going to focus on the higher negatives. The Raiders minus 205s. And we're going to focus on the minus 105 though. And the minus 105. The under 40.5 and the 4.5 point favorite spread for the Raiders at home. So we're going to focus on the bottom one in this game. Let me scroll down. All right, 30% and 49%. 30% of the betting going with the 49ers, 49% of the money going with the 49ers, 70% of the betting going with the Raiders, and 51% of the money going with the Raiders on the money line. Spread looks like this. 68% of the betting going with the 49ers, 24% of the money going with the 49ers, 32% of the betting going with the Raiders, and 76% of the money going with the Raiders. Over, under. Looks like this. 40.5 minus 105 going with that under. The over is dominating, obviously. 80% of the betting going with the over. 77% of the money going with the over. This could be a game where they play with these odds. 40.5. They're just above the 40. This is a game they could either go 42 points scored or 45 points scored, just over that 40, or about 38, 35 points scored. Teetering with that line. Under is currently getting that minus 105. I would fade the public and go with that under only as it currently stands. Now, minus 205 is getting 51% of the money. I would join the public and go with that, even though it's just over 50 percentile. And the Raiders across the board in this game at home. Let's scroll down. All right, Baltimore versus Dallas. Hold on. All right, Baltimore versus Dallas. Minus 132 money line for Baltimore. Plus 112 for the Cowboys. Minus 1.5 at minus 112 cost for the Ravens. Plus 1.5 at minus 108 cost for the Cowboys. 1.5 point favorites are the Ravens, and they're getting that minus 112 sweet spot. Keep that in mind. Over 36.5 is getting minus 110, and so is the under. It's getting minus 110 at 36.5 total. Now let's see where the percentages are going. Now that minus 132 is enticing for the Ravens, but let's see. 77% of the betting and 90% of the money going with Baltimore. 77% of the betting and 87% of the money going with Baltimore on the spread. Over, under, people betting heavily on that over. 92% and 94% of the money going with that over. Once again, preseason is a chance to build confidence in bettors. So you're going to see a lot of joining the public actually work out in this preseason. You're going to see a lot of that this preseason. So minus 110 cost going over, minus 110 going under. It's good to join the public, but I would fade the public only because these percentages are so high. And when the sharps go in, they're going to bet heavily on that over, especially if it doesn't increase to 37 or 37 and a half. So if it does that, then go with the over. If it stays on where it is or goes less, go with the under. But this is a chance to build confidence, so that over could work out. Minus 132 is getting 90% of the money and 87% of the money going with Baltimore on the spread. Dare I say, I would fade the public in this one. I would fade the public and go with the Cowboys across the board, unless Baltimore increases in their odds here. If they go to minus 138, minus 140, minus 142 plus, look out for Baltimore in that one. Only as it currently stands, I will go with the Cowboys. But the Battle of LA, Chargers versus Rams, minus 320 money line for the Chargers, plus 260 for the Rams, minus 6.5 spread at minus 120 cost, plus 6.5 for the Rams at minus 102 cost. Over unders at 39.5, minus 108 going over, minus 112 going under. And let's see where these odds, where the splits are going. The highest of the day so far are the Chargers and minus 320. Let me scroll down. All right. 69% of the betting right here in favor of the Chargers, 53% of the money in favor of the Chargers. However, they're only getting 35 and 65. 35% of the betting on the spread, that is, and 65% of the money on the spread. So there's pretty much people tossed up in this game. They don't know which way to go, but obviously they're working off this minus 320 here, plus 280 for the Rams, only getting 40. Well, it's getting 47%, a whole lot of money, which is why, only as it currently stands, I'm confident in the Chargers. When the sharps go in and bettors that bet late and bet heavily, they're going to put heavy money on the Rams in this game. I would challenge that and go with the Chargers on the ML, Rams on the spread. Rams on the spread looks decent. Over is getting 96% of the money and 87%. I would fade that and go with the under in this game. I would go with the under in this game, 39.5. But whichever odds could flip, these odds could flip. Minus the costs could flip. Minus 112 could go over. Minus 108 could go under. Whichever one has that higher negative, even if it's minus 115, minus 105, go with that in a game that has these high money line odds. Just keep that in mind. Jets versus Giants, plus 160 for the Jets, minus 190 for the Giants. 4.5 point favor. No, 3.5 point underdogs are the Jets at minus 102 cost. 3.5 point favorites are the Giants at minus 120 cost. Over under 39.5. Over is getting minus 110 cost. Under is getting minus 110 cost. Let's see where the money is going. Giants are minus 190 and minus 120 on the spread. 30% and 18%. The Jets. So the Giants are getting 82% of the money in this one, 94% of the money going with the Giants in this one. Join the public in that one, and the over-under is at 39.5, minus 110 even cost. I would challenge that and definitely go with that. Go with the over and join the public in that one. Let's go with the next game. Let me scroll down. All right, Tampa Bay versus. All right, we'll stop it right here, since that goes into the next day. Tampa Bay versus Pittsburgh, minus 154 for Tampa Bay, plus 130 for Pittsburgh. Minus 120 costs going with Tampa Bay at my 2.5 point spread. 2.5 point underdogs are the Steelers at minus 102 cost. Over under 38.5, minus 115 cost going over, minus 105 going under. And how you read this minus 105? Let's see. Tampa Bay's up here. Yes. 58% of the betting in favor of Tampa Bay, 76% of the money in favor of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's getting most of the money in this game, and that might be wise for the public to do, but this is still early, and the sharps haven't gone in yet. 61% of the betting going with the Buccaneers, with 67% of the money going with the Buccaneers on the spread. Over under looks like this is the lowest money percentage for a total. Over 78% of the betting, 56% of the money in favor of the over. And that looks wise, but that minus 105, obviously these odds could change. But I would go with that over and test that minus 115 cost. I don't think that's going to hold up. Minus 115 could go that under. Minus 154, they're above that minus 150 threshold, as I told y'all about, which hits more so than not, especially when they're getting a majority of the money, which they are not. They're only getting 24%. So when the sharps go in, they're going to bet heavier on Tampa Bay. More than likely, those percentages are going to change towards 50-50. If those go towards 50-50 and Tampa Bay maintains above minus 150 threshold, go with Tampa Bay. But as it currently stands, Tampa Bay across the board. But as it currently stands, I would go with Pittsburgh across the board and challenge that minus 105 cost for the total and go with that over. Join the public and go with the over in that one. Arizona versus Denver. Plus 134 cost for Arizona. Minus 158 for Denver. 3-point favorites are the Broncos. 3-point underdogs are the Cardinals. Cardinals are on the road at minus 115 cost on the spread. Minus 105 cost for Denver on the spread at home. Over under 38.5 going over at minus 105 cost. Under is getting 38.5 at minus 115 cost. So Broncos are above that minus 150 threshold. Let's see where the money is going. Let me scroll down. All right, 22% of the betting going with the Cardinals, 70% of the money going with the Cardinals, 78% of the betting going with Denver on the money line, 30% of the money going with Denver on the money line, 67% and 91% going with Arizona on the spread. 67% of the betting and 91% of the money. Over under 87% going over, 87% going over on the money in this one. So let's see where those money percentages are. Over is getting that minus 105 threshold at 38.5. Looks like that would be likely. That likely could happen. Going with that minus 105 cost, getting 87% of the money. Obviously, the 87% will not hold up. It will get the majority. It will get the majority going with that over. The majority will go with that over. Minus 105. We're going to focus on this, though. The minus 158. And minus 105 here as well. Detroit across the board, 3 points spread. I will say this. If you see a 3-point spread and you see it go above, eventually go above 3, 3.5, 4, more than likely 3.5, look out for that value, especially when the home team is a favorite. When the home team is a favorite and it is a 3-point spread, or it increases throughout before game time, look out for that team. However, they're only getting 9% of the money on the spread and 30% of the money on the money line. So Cardinals look like they could sneak and take this one. People high on Denver this season. But like I said, it is all about building confidence in the bettors. It's all about building confidence in the bettors. So you're going to see a lot of underdogs win. People putting heavy money on Arizona in this one. 70% here, 91% here. More than likely, Denver, just because they're above this minus 150 threshold, and they're getting 30%. If you see this 30% turned into 20% or less, or 22% somewhere or less, and they still are above this minus 150 threshold, go with Arizona across the board. Only if they decrease in their splits and they maintain this minus 150 above minus 150, go with Arizona across the board if their percentages decrease. If you see their percentages increase, Denver that is, they go to 35, 40 percentile, somewhere around there, go with Denver across the board in this one. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Pray every day. I have been Scott. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys take care.